Welcome to this deep dive, about UFOs
UAPs.
or UAPs.
UAPs.
Yeah, unidentified anomalous phenomena, as they're called now.
Yeah.
You sent over an interview with Luis Elizondo,
Right.
former head of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to unpack some really intriguing stuff here. Government secrets, compelling evidence.
Yeah.
Elizondo's journey from skeptic to, well, let's just say he's seen things that changed his mind.
What's fascinating about Elizondo is that he doesn't fit the mold of, your typical UFO enthusiast.
Right.
This is a guy with a serious background in intelligence, in a scientific mind.
Yeah.
He approaches this topic with a level of rigor and credibility that's really hard to dismiss.
Okay, so let's start with Elizondo's background then, because it's key to understanding his perspective.
Absolutely.
He didn't just stumble into this world.
Right.
He spent decades in the trenches of intelligence work.
Yeah, absolutely. He started with a science background, microbiology, immunology. Then he joins the army, serves in Korea, becomes a special agent working in counterintelligence and counterterrorism.
Wow.
Think espionage, think the war on terror.
Yeah.
He was in the thick of it.
And this experience shaped his worldview, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
you don't deal with those kinds of threats for years without developing a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
So when he was first approached about this Pentagon program investigating UFOs,
Yeah.
he was understandably hesitant.
He even jokes in the interview that, he was too busy chasing bad guys to worry about little green men.
Right.
But his superiors insisted he meet with the top rocket scientist for the U.S. government.
Okay.
Someone Elizondo describes as like the ultimate authority on all things space and flight.
Wow.
And this meeting was a turning point.
Yeah.
The scientist basically asks Elizondo what he thinks about UFOs.
Okay.
And Elizondo's like, I'm more concerned with terrorists and spies. That's when the scientist drops this line that really stuck with me. Be careful of analytic bias. He was cautioning Elizondo not to dismiss something just because it didn't fit into his existing framework of understanding.
That's such a good point.
It is. It's a powerful reminder for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
We tend to filter new information through the lens of our existing beliefs.
Right.
But what if those beliefs are limiting our ability to see the bigger picture?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So that meeting sets the stage for Elizondo's involvement in AATIP,
AATIP.
the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. What was its mission?
Right.
Was it just about chasing shadows in the sky?
Not at all. AATIP was specifically focused on UAP encounters that involved military personnel and assets. These weren't your average civilian sightings. We're talking trained observers, pilots, radar data, gun camera footage, the works.
Wow.
The concern was that these UAPs could pose a potential threat to national security.
Okay, so this is where things start to get really interesting, because the more Elizondo dug into this, more he realized these weren't just misidentified aircraft. They were exhibiting characteristics that defied our understanding of physics and technology.
Absolutely. He describes 5 key observables that set UAPs apart. And the one that really struck me, and I think might resonate with you too, is the instantaneous acceleration.
Yeah, he gave this crazy comparison. Fighter pilots experience serious medical consequences at around 9 Gs.
Yeah.
Even the most advanced fighter jets can only handle a fraction of what these UAPs were pulling. We're talking thousands of Gs.
Yeah, it's insane.
Imagine the forces involved, the energy required.
Right.
It's mind-boggling.
It suggests a level of technological sophistication that is far beyond anything we've ever seen or even imagined.
Right.
And that's where the anxiety kicks in, right?
Yeah.
If something can move like that,
Yeah.
what else is it capable of?
Yeah.
What are its intentions?
Exactly. And Elizondo doesn't shy away from those questions. He acknowledges the fear, the uncertainty, but he also emphasizes the importance of remaining open-minded and approaching this topic with a scientific curiosity.
He uses this great analogy to illustrate his point. He says, imagine you come home, you've locked your doors, set the alarm, everything seems secure,
Okay.
but then you find muddy boot prints inside your house.
Oh.
Nothing is missing, no one's hurt, but someone or something has been inside your space.
It's that unsettling feeling of the unknown, right?
Yeah.
And Elizondo argues that we can't afford to ignore these incursions just because we haven't seen overt hostile actions.
Right.
The potential implications are too significant to dismiss.
It's about understanding the capabilities, the potential both good and bad.
Right.
And to do that, we need to overcome the stigma, the secrecy that has surrounded this topic for so long.
Which brings us to the question of why the government has been so reluctant to disclose information about UAPs.
Right.
Elizondo hints at some of the reasons: the stigma, the fear of public panic, even potential legal ramifications.
It's a complex issue with historical and political dimensions, but one thing's for sure.
Yeah.
The more we learn about these UAP encounters, the more questions they raise.
And, man, I'm still thinking about that boot print analogy.
Yeah.
Such a simple way to think about this whole thing, you know?
It is.
It's not about whether or not you believe in aliens or not, you know? It's about acknowledging that, hey, something could be going on here.
Exactly. And that brings us to the question of why the government's been so, reluctant to disclose.
Yeah, why so quiet about all this stuff?
Right. Elizondo kind of sheds some light on the historical context, going back to the early days of UFO sightings during the Cold War.
So this is going way back.
Yeah, way back. And he argues that the government essentially, had to make a choice.
Yep.
They chose to prioritize the known threat of the Soviet Union over this, unknown, potentially ambiguous threat of UAPs.
Right, because during the Cold War, the Soviet Union was like
a huge deal.
Yeah, the big problem.
Right. And remember, this was a time when, the U.S. was facing a very real possibility of nuclear war.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They couldn't afford to get sidetracked by something they didn't understand.
Yeah.
Especially if they didn't have any clear solutions
Right.
for how to deal with it.
So it's like, okay, we've got this big problem over here.
Right.
We can't worry about this little thing over here.
Exactly. It's like trying to focus on a math test while there's a buzzing fly in the room.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
But you got to prioritize.
Yeah, you got to get that math test done.
Right, exactly. But as Elizondo points out, that doesn't mean the government completely ignored the UAP issue.
Okay.
There were programs, albeit often underfunded and shrouded in secrecy, that continued to gather information.
So they're still kind of keeping tabs on this?
They're keeping tabs. They're not ignoring it completely.
Okay.
He mentions this legacy program that predates AATIP, suggesting that the government's been tracking these UAP encounters for decades.
For decades, wow.
Yeah, and then there's this really tantalizing detail that he drops about a significant shift in resources in the early 2000s.
Okay.
It seems like something happened around that time that led to a renewed interest in UAPs.
So is he talking about like right after 9/11?
It's possible, maybe 9/11 played a role.
Because everything kind of changed after 9/11, right?
Instead of change.
I mean, the government suddenly became very aware of threats that
Yeah.
they hadn't really thought about,
Absolutely. They realized they couldn't afford to ignore anything anymore.
Right. So maybe they're like, oh, we better look at this UFO thing again.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But regardless of the reasons, the secrecy surrounding these programs has created its own set of problems.
Okay, how so?
Well, Elizondo reveals that there were elements within the government that were making decisions about UAP investigations without informing Congress or even the president.
So basically they were doing their own thing.
They were doing their own thing, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, that is, I mean...
those oversight committees are there for a reason.
Yeah, they're supposed to be keeping things transparent.
Transparency and accountability, exactly. And Elizondo suggests that this lack of oversight may have contributed to the reluctance to disclose information to the public.
Okay, so they're kind of covering their,
You might have been worried about the legal ramifications of their actions.
Right, because if they didn't tell anybody and they were doing this, then
Yeah.
they could get in trouble.
Right.
Okay, so we have this whole thing going on. Secrecy, conflicting priorities,
Yeah.
legal liabilities. I mean, it's no wonder the government has been so, like you said, reluctant to talk about it.
It's a mess.
Right.
And that brings us to the evidence itself. What kind of information was AATIP actually gathering?
Yeah.
Elizondo talks about the gimbal video, the declassified footage that was released by the Pentagon a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, I remember when that came out. It was everywhere.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it was all over the news. It was on social media.
It was like this confirmation that, okay, the government's finally taking this seriously.
Right, they're finally admitting that something's going on.
Exactly. And the video itself is pretty compelling. It shows this UAP rotating in a way that, defies our understanding of aerodynamics.
Yeah, it's like, how is this thing even flying?
Right, and you can hear the pilots in the recording just completely baffled.
Yeah, they're like, what is that?
What is that? We've never seen anything like it.
So they don't know what they're looking at.
Nope. And Elizondo mentions that this is just one of many videos and reports that the government has on file.
Wait, so there's more?
There's more.
Oh, man. So what else is out there? What are they hiding?
That's the big question. It's like that saying, the truth is out there, but in this case, it might be locked away in a vault somewhere.
Okay, so we've got the historical context, we've got the secrecy, we've got the evidence.
Yep.
But the big question remains, who or what are these UAPs.
Right, and that's where things get even more intriguing.
Yeah.
Elizondo, with his scientific background, he's very careful not to jump to conclusions. Right. He emphasizes the importance of considering all possibilities.
Okay, so what's he thinking?
Well, he reminds us that, we've only recently discovered microorganisms, this vast, unseen world that exists right under our noses.
Like bacteria and stuff?
Exactly. What if we're making a similar mistake with UAPs?
Like we just don't even know.
What if we're limited by our current understanding of physics of life itself?
So what he's saying is there could be something totally out there that we can't even comprehend.
Exactly. He challenges us to, expand our definition of what aliens might be.
So not just little green men.
Right. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional? Something else entirely.
Okay, so it could be anything.
It could be anything. And I love how he uses this analogy of humans observing wildebeest on the Serengeti.
Okay.
We swoop in with our helicopters, tranquilize them, study their behavior.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
What if UAPs are doing something similar to us?
So we're the wildebeest.
Maybe we are, and that kind of flips the script, doesn't it?
No, because we're always thinking,
yeah.
We're the ones going out there exploring.
Right, we're at the top of the food chain.
Right. But what if we're not?
What if we're not? It makes you realize that our perspective might be incredibly limited.
Yeah, it's like, wow, we might be the ones being observed?
The subjects of some grand cosmic experiment.
Okay, so we're the lab rats.
Maybe we are, but, Elizondo also presents a couple of counter-arguments just to play devil's advocate.
Okay, so he's like, let's look at all sides of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He suggests that maybe it's advanced foreign technology, something developed by Russia, China, or some other nation state.
Okay, so they've just gotten way ahead of us.
Right, that they've managed to leapfrog us technologically.
Okay.
But then he systematically dismantles that theory. He argues that if another country had developed this kind of technology 70 years ago, it would be the biggest intelligence failure in history. There's no way they could have kept it secret for so long.
Right. I mean, if they had this amazing technology, they would be using it.
They'd be flaunting it.
Yeah, showing it off.
Exactly. He compares it to finding a fully assembled 747 in King Tut's tomb.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The technology wouldn't match the time period. It'd be an anachronism. And then the other counter-argument he addresses is mass hallucination.
Okay, so everyone's just seeing things?
Maybe everyone's just seeing things, imagining it all. But again, he kind of pokes holes in that theory.
How so?
Well, these aren't just random people seeing lights in the sky. We're talking about trained observers, pilots, radar operators.
People who know what they're looking at.
People whose job it is to be situationally aware and to make critical decisions.
Right.
And the data often corroborates these reports. You have multiple witnesses, multiple sensor readings, all converging on the same event.
So it's not just one person.
Not just one person. It's hard to dismiss that as mass delusion.
Okay, so if it's not foreign technology and it's not mass hallucination, then what is it?
Right, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Elizondo doesn't offer any definitive answers, but he does leave us with this really powerful message.
Okay, what's that?
He challenges us to be more open-minded, to question our assumptions, to embrace the unknown.
I like that.
He reminds us that, our understanding of reality is constantly evolving, that what seems impossible today might be commonplace tomorrow.
It's true. We're learning new things all the time.
All the time. And that's a message that resonates far beyond, the realm of UAPs.
I think so, too.
It's a call to embrace curiosity, to explore the mysteries of the universe, and to be prepared for the possibility that we might not be alone.
As we're talking, I keep thinking about that image of Earth as like a tiny pale blue dot against the vastness of space.
Yeah, that's a powerful image.
It's humbling.
It is.
And kind of awe-inspiring at the same time.
Elizondo actually brought up that image himself.
He did?
Yeah, he talked about how it can make us feel insignificant.
Oh, yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
It's easy to feel that way when you're thinking about, advanced civilizations or interdimensional beings.
Right. I mean, where do we fit in if we're not the only intelligent life in the universe?
That's a big question.
It is, but Elizondo's point was that even though we might be a small part of something much larger, it doesn't diminish the value of, our experiences, our lives, our planet.
I see what you're saying.
It's like that feeling you get when you're standing on a mountaintop.
Oh, yeah.
Looking out over this vast landscape. You feel small, but also connected to something immense and powerful.
Yeah, I get that.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from Elizondo's message.
Okay.
It's not about feeling overwhelmed or insignificant. It's about embracing the mystery, the wonder, the possibility that there's so much more out there than we can currently comprehend.
He's not just saying like, oh, wow, look at all this crazy stuff and that's it.
Right. He's not just leaving us with a sense of awe.
Yeah.
He's challenging us to be more open-minded, to question our assumptions, to approach this topic with a scientific curiosity.
He's all about the data, the evidence.
Exactly. He even presents counter-arguments to the UAP phenomenon.
Like what?
Foreign technology mass hallucination, and then he systematically debunks them.
Yeah, he does.
Pushing us to think critically and to consider alternative explanations.
He's not asking us to just believe anything he says.
Right. He's inviting us to be a part of the exploration, to engage with the evidence, and to draw our own conclusions.
That's what I like about it.
And that's what makes his story so compelling.
Yeah.
He's a scientist, an intelligence professional, someone who's dedicated his life to understanding complex issues.
Right.
And he's approaching the UAP phenomenon with that same level of rigor and integrity.
And he's really pushing for the government to be more transparent.
Absolutely. He's a strong advocate for transparency and accountability.
Yeah, he thinks the public has a right to know what's going on.
He does, and that more open dialogue is essential if we're going to make any progress.
And I think we're starting to see some movement in that direction.
Yeah, there's definitely a growing number of lawmakers, scientists, researchers who are pushing for a more open and honest conversation.
It's not just about, are we alone or are there aliens out there?
It's bigger than that.
Yeah, it could change everything we know about science technology, even our place in the universe.
Imagine if we were to definitively confirm the existence of an advanced extraterrestrial civilization.
Whoa.
It would be a paradigm shift on an unprecedented scale.
Like everything we thought we knew would be out the window?
It would force us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about our origins, our history, our future.
It's mind-blowing.
And even if these UAPs turn out to be something else entirely, interdimensional beings, time travelers, something we haven't even imagined yet, the implications are still profound.
Right, because it means that anything is possible.
It challenges our very definition of what's possible.
It really does.
And it underscores the importance of remaining open to new discoveries, new ways of thinking, new possibilities.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm feeling kind of a mix of excitement and anxiety.
Yeah, I get that we're on the cusp of something potentially groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But we're also entering uncharted territory.
It's a little scary, but also really exciting.
It is. And it brings me to this final thought-provoking question that Elizondo poses in his book.
Okay.
And it's one I'd like to leave our listeners with.
I'm listening.
If the government did have definitive proof of extraterrestrial life, would they release it?
Wow, that's a big one.
It's a question that goes beyond the science and delves into the realm of ethics, politics, and the very nature of truth.
It makes you wonder what they would do.
What factors would influence their decision?
Yeah, would they be worried about public panic?
Yeah.
Economic instability?
Maybe even the potential loss of control.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but it's those kinds of questions that drive us to explore, to learn, to push the boundaries of what we think we know.
And maybe someday we'll have those answers.
Until then, the mystery continues.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. I want to thank you for, talking about all this with me, and thank you to all of our listeners for joining us.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure.
Keep those minds open, folks. Until next time.